What's up, everybody? It's your boy Tibbs. There is 2 hours and 20 minutes to the start of the NFL season, Sunday season. The Patriots started on Thursday, if you can call that starting. But we got 2 more divisions to go over, and it is just me today running solo. I'm going to talk to you about the AFC and NFC South, both great divisions with both great defenses and even better offenses. I'm going to start with Houston Texans. Thinking about you, Houston, with all the stuff that's going on these days. Stay strong. If it's one thing that's strong, it's that Houston defense led by J.J. Watt, perennial Defensive Player of the Year candidate. J.J. can always bring it. Coming off a season-ending injury from last year that he suffered after a game with the Patriots in Week 4, we're still hopeful that he can bounce back. You also got Whitney Merciless, Brian Cushing, Bernardrick McKinney, Jadeveon Clowney, all first-round talents, and all can bring it. They gave the Patriots fits during the first divisional playoff round last year, and as you know, I always got to dial it back to the Patriots. Jonathan Joseph anchoring that secondary, getting up there in years, but he can still bring it, man. Still a great cover guy. No one on this defense that you want to see. The only position that they could use a little more help with is safety. They lost their star safety Glover Quinn to Detroit, and now they're just rolling with Hal Andre and Corey Moore, 2 names that I'm not really that familiar with. But they also got Kareem Jackson playing in the nickel, former first-round pick out of Alabama, and Treston Dakoud. I wonder if he's related to the old Dakoud that used to play corner for Atlanta. And on offense, they're no slouch either. They got Will Fuller V. Great first-round talent, great speed. Definitely going to give the defenses in the AFC South fits. We also have DeAndre Hopkins, one of the premier receivers in the NFL right now, fresh off getting himself a new contract, so you know he's happy about that. C.J. Fedorowicz, tight end, who doesn't get enough credit in my opinion, and Lamar Miller and Alfred Blue anchoring that run game. The offensive line for Houston is really taking a hit with Dwayne Brown holding out. He's a man that deserves to be paid. And hasn't been paid, and I think that's really going to affect this team moving forward. Seems like we have a lot of guys that aren't getting paid that deserve to be paid. Players need more respect these days. That's why we turn on the game on Sunday, not to see the owners. So give that man his money. Quarterback is the major concern for the Houston Texans. Tom Savage. Nothing to write home about. I am excited to see Clemson's own national champion, Deshaun Watson, get some time when it comes. I'm not sure why Coach Bill O'Brien is not giving him the stage right away. Must not think he's ready. But speaking of Coach Bill O'Brien, a lot of expatriates on this team. On the coaching staff, it's actually filled with Patriots. You got a former offensive coordinator, Bill O'Brien, defensive coordinator, Pro Bowler and Super Bowl champion Mike Vrabel. Then you got special teams ace Larry Izzo coaching the special teams. Vince Wilfork has really left a huge hole, no pun intended, in this defense after he retired. He only got bigger, too, when he went to Houston. It's that ribs, that barbecue that's keeping that man big. But now that he's gone, DJ Reader is going to have to step up. And that is someone who I've never heard of before, saying his name right now. So, Houston, I'm feeling for you. We're drinking our Poland Spring today, even though G can't make it. We're hoping that you can put together another playoff run, because that game that gave me fits, or that gave the Patriots fits, gave me fits as well. So keep doing what you're doing, Houston. Next, we have the premier up-and-coming team in the AFC, in my opinion. Probably the most exciting besides Minnesota, in my opinion. The Tennessee Titans coming in second last year at 9-7. They tied the Texans for 9-7, but due to tiebreakers, the Texans took it. Tennessee Titans really making a name for themselves. They took a speedy wide receiver in Corey Davis with their first round pick this year, and that gives their quarterback Marcus Mariota weapons. We definitely want to see Marcus Mariota stay healthy. That's an issue that he's had in the past. But when he's on the field, he's electric, and that's what we need this year is electric play from the quarterback position for the Titans in order for them to succeed. They also have a couple Patriots on their team, but we'll get to that later. I'm more excited about Corey Davis out of Western Michigan, setting records in college, seeing if he can keep it going in the pros. I'm sure he can. Rashard Matthews coming over from Miami, as well as Eric Decker from New York. Eric Decker was kind of wasting away after getting thrown to by Peyton Manning. He's getting thrown to by the likes of Ryan Fitzpatrick and Geno Smith. Now he's upgrading to Marcus Mariota. If he can stay healthy, I think that this is going to be Marcus Mariota can stay healthy. I think this is going to be a great offense this year, and not just because of those receiving threats, but also probably one of the best 1-2 punches in the NFL at running back. You got DeMarco Murray and you got Derrick Henry, both potential Pro Bowlers. Derrick Henry's probably a couple of years away from being a potential Pro Bowler, but that's only because DeMarco Murray is going to take a bulk of these snaps. That being said, you can't get around or you can't talk about this offense without talking about former Pro Bowler Delanie Walker. Starting, I think, his fourth year after his stint in San Francisco, Delanie Walker could really catch passes, really a threat downfield. If Marcus Mariota can stay healthy, I think that this offense scores a lot of points and can be one of the best offenses in the AFC South. Moving on to defense, they're no slouch either. Jarrell Casey is a potential Pro Bowler at defensive tackle. You also have Sylvester Williams coming over from Denver. Derek Morgan, pass rusher out of Georgia Tech, going into his 7th year. Man, they grow up fast. Speaking of old pass rushers, you get Brian Orakpo, Jonathan Cyprien, starting strong safety. You also got Logan Ryan, who was money for New England. All you Patriots fans will remember. Great third corner. They're giving him the start at left. Watching him these past couple years in New England, I'm not sure if he's going to be able to anchor the corner position by himself. He was a great nickel corner, great backup for when Malcolm Butler needed help. I'm not sure if he's a starter. We're drinking our Poland Spring. We're praying for Logan Ryan. We want him to do well. Does he actually do well? I'm not sure. I'd love him to, but Tennessee gave him a lot of money that I'm not sure he deserves. He deserves the respect. He deserves the money, but if you're putting him at your number one starting corner, that gives me a little bit of skepticism for you, Tennessee. But that being said, your offense is on point. Your defensive line is on point. Brian Orakpo, he's not the same guy he used to be, but if he can put some pressure on the passer, that's going to allow Logan Ryan to be a little more flexible in his coverage, and hopefully they can keep it up. I'm really hopeful that Marcus Mariota can put together a Pro Bowl season. I think it'd be really great if he could play the full 16 games. That all starts with their offensive line as well. Taylor Lewan, who most of you will remember from a low light of his career, which was when Jadeveon Clowney, who we just talked about during the Texans preview, completely blew up the offensive line at Michigan and sacked not only the quarterback but also the running back who was in pass protection. And it was Taylor Lewan's man who he missed, allowing him to make that play. So I'm hopeful that DeMarco Murray and Marcus Mariota can both stay healthy. The one thing about DeMarco Murray is, my friend Pat Hennessy will tell you, they always get hurt. So if they can stay healthy, I think it's really going to make the AFC South that much more interesting. Then we're going to go a little to the Northwest to talk about, we're being positive today. So I got nothing negative to say right off the bat about the Indianapolis Colts, led by an injured Andrew Luck, which is always heartbreaking when you get a great player not able to start the season. But that being said, they still have tons of weapons on the offense. You got wide receiver T.Y. Hilton, Dante Moncrief. Got some old faces that G will remember. Kamar Aiken out of Baltimore. I have a feeling that G is actually happy that Kamar Aiken is gone. You also got Chester Rogers, who I'm not familiar with, and Quan Bray, who I am also not familiar with. Doesn't get much better at running back. Frank Gore, former dog, as G would say, but he's really slowed down these past couple years after he left San Francisco. And to back him up, you have Robert Turbin, who I had no idea he was still in the league. I remember starting him in fantasy football in like 2010, and 7 years later, he's still a backup for the Colts. At quarterback for the Colts, you have Scott Tolzien, former Green Bay backup. They also traded for my boy Jacoby Brissett. Won a Super Bowl ring in New England. Had a great start against Houston last year. And to quote the Colts, even though it's kind of laughable, but it's such a Colts thing to say, had the best preseason performance ever. He definitely can ball. So I feel better about putting Brissett out there than I would putting Tolzien out there. I think the reason that Tolzien's out there is just because he was there for the whole camp, where Jacoby Brissett has just come in a little over a week ago, under a week ago actually. And then of course you got Andrew Luck, Andrew the Giant Luck, as Bill Simmons would say. Nursing an injury. Hope he can get healthy, because it's always good to see good football players out there on the field. One of the main reasons why he is injured is because they're lackluster offensive line. Anthony Costanzo out of BC, shout out to my man Jaron, is the only name you'll recognize on this offensive line. They only have one first-round pick, one second-round pick, and then it's all kind of slouches from the seventh round or undrafted free agents. That's not a recipe for keeping your franchise quarterback healthy. Unless the Colts fix this, I think we're going to get much of the same, and I think that's a major reason why they fired their GM Ryan Grigson in the winter. The definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over again and hoping for different results. They being the Colts, kept drafting, wide receivers, cornerbacks. Never got any defensive line help, which we're going to get to in a minute. Never got any offensive line help. Never got any new running backs. We're staying positive for the Colts. So I'm hopeful that they can put together a good season. It all hinges on whether Andrew Luck can get healthy, and if he can't get healthy, if Jacoby Brissett can step up and play like he did in the preseason and against Houston last year. Moving on to the defense, a lot of familiar faces for you Patriots fans out there. Looks like they're injured, though. So Henry Anderson, Al Woods, Jonathan Hankins out of the Giants, I actually do know that name. He was a force up front, so I know that Jonathan Hankins can really improve that run defense that really gashed the Colts for so much. And the Colts' run defense has been so bad for so long. They made so many names over the past couple of years. You Patriots fans will remember Jonas Gray rushed for, I think, 4 touchdowns and almost 300 yards against the Colts defense, and could not replicate that. They make other running backs look like superheroes. Linebackers, this is where the familiar names come in. Antonio Morrison, someone I'm not familiar with, but John Bostic, who spent some time with the Patriots, coming out of Florida. Also was drafted by the Bears before being traded by the Patriots. He was a guy that I really liked, never really had that big of an impact on the football field, but maybe being in Indianapolis, where there aren't that many big names, he'll have a chance to really come into his own. More familiar faces, Jabal Sheard, Super Bowl champion from last year, from New England. Couldn't really be that consistent, which is why he's not back. In my opinion, I think it would really help to have him back, especially after the performance on Thursday, where you got less pressure on Alex Smith than I think there's ever been since 2009. That 2009 Patriots team was awful. Speaking of the 2009 awful Patriots team, Darius Butler, cornerback that was drafted in the second round by the Patriots. They drafted Darius Butler instead of Clay Matthews back in the day. I will never let them live that down. Also, Vontae Davis out of Miami. Matthias Farley, someone I haven't heard of, starting at their safety, and Rashawn Melvin starting on the other corner. But Vontae Davis and Darius Butler, I'm really glad for Darius Butler. He was a good guy that just couldn't get it together in New England. He's been he's been on the Colts for about 5 years now, and he really reinvented himself, and that's great. They have a first-round pick in Malik Hooker, backing up Butler at the safety position. TJ Green as well, second-round pick from last year, looking to make a larger impact on this team. And you also got the ageless wonder, 4-time Super Bowl champion, Adam Vinatieri, kicking, still going at age 40+. The Colts had a record of 8-8 last year. Chuck Pagano is definitely on the hot seat. There's no way around that. If he can't produce a winning season this year, I think that he is out as coach. There's going to be no shortage of high-profile coaches that are looking to coach Andrew Luck in this young defense. So if you're the Colts fans, there's plenty of optimism. If Andrew Luck can get healthy, you got two great wide receivers. You got a running game that's a little bit untested, or a little old and a lot of bit old. But you got a rookie in Marlon Mack, who some people are excited about. I'm not one of them, but you know what? Let me take a sip of my Poland Spring. I'm excited about Marlon Mack and offensive line that we're looking to add to. So that being said, the Colts, I believe that they're going to stay the third-place team here, but they're definitely not going to be the fourth-place team. That actually, they might. But we're moving to the fourth team in the AFC South right now, the 3-13 Jacksonville Jaguars, a team that has some teeth offensively, except for the position where you really want that teeth to be in, and that's Blake Bortles. And also, to all of our listeners in Florida, we're pulling for you right now. We know that Hurricane Irma is devastating your land right now, but we know they can't break your spirit. So we're with you guys. Back to the football. Allen Robinson, starting wide receiver, Pro Bowler. Had a huge rookie season, kind of a sophomore slump. Looking to bounce that back as long as Blake Bortles, their quarterback, can. And that's really the big question: is can Blake Bortles be a starter in the NFL? He had a pretty decently okay rookie season, horrible sophomore and junior seasons in the NFL. I'd love to see him turn it around, but from what I hear, he's not 100% committed to football. Spends a lot of time on the beach bars in Jacksonville. But if the man can concentrate on the craft of football, I think that he can be. He has the tools. He has the physical gifts to be a quarterback in the NFL. It's just whether or not he can make it happen. The major addition to this team on the offense is Leonard Fournette, first-round pick out of LSU. People are really, really excited about Leonard Fournette. It's a big body who can really run downhill. He's going to make December football away games really difficult for opposing defenses. I'm pretty high on him. They have a stacked backfield though, which is really upsetting for some of these guys. Chris Ivory had a huge season a couple of seasons ago for the New York Jets, comes over and almost instantly gets buried as the backup running back for Leonard Fournette. The same time that you signed Chris Ivory, you drafted T.J. Yeldon, running back out of Alabama. I don't think he's a third down back. I think the man can start in the NFL, and he's third string on this team. And then you have someone behind him named Corey Grant, who I've never heard of. Maybe he's good. Never know. But overall, this is a offense that needs help at the offensive line. Not many talents here that can help protect Blake Bortles, which makes his already difficult job harder. And then you have the ageless wonder, Mercedes Lewis. Him and Antonio Gates have been plugging away at the tight end position for so long. It's going to be amazing if Gronk can last 3 more years, and I think these guys will be playing 10 more years with the way they produce. You also have James O'Shaughnessy, who the Patriots traded for, but could not keep on their final roster, backing up Lewis. So there's always that. It's an offense to be excited about. Alan Hearns is someone who we also did not talk about, who is a great, dependable wide receiver. I'd love to have him on the Patriots, and he is the 5th wide receiver listed on this depth chart. So that just gives you an idea about how deep this team is at wide receiver. If Blake Bortles could get them the ball, look for them to be a huge threat. Moving to the defensive side of the ball, they're slowly building a respectable defense in Jacksonville. Malik Jackson from Denver, he's a beast on that Super Bowl team. Once he left, the defense kind of was hurting last year. I'm not sure how big of a impact he had on this defense last year, but he's going to look to make a bigger impact with some more pieces around him this year. You also have Paul Posluszny starting at middle linebacker out of Buffalo. He was at Buffalo for a long time. I was hoping the Patriots would grab him when he became a free agent years ago, but it never happened. He's still plugging away in Jacksonville. Your other linebackers, Miles Jack, Telvin Smith. Miles Jack, second-round pick last year, was looking at top 15 status in the first round before knee injury kind of drove him down. He's looking to continue his decently okay rookie season from last year. Then starting cornerback, you have Jalen Ramsey out of Florida. Always good when a Florida boy can go to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I bet that puts butts in the seats. You also got safety Tayshaun Gibson out of Cleveland, one of the bright spots on that Cleveland defense last year. Is now with the Jacksonville Jaguars. You also got Barry Church from Dallas. Hasn't been that effective for a couple years, but he brings that veteran presence that I think could really help Ramsey and Miles Jack. And also, I was looking for this guy when I was doing the Houston preview a little earlier, A.J. Boye. Part of that Houston Texans defense that gave Tom Brady fits last January is now on this Jacksonville defense. Aaron Colvin as well is a name that some of you might remember, a 4th-round pick in 2014 that's still plugging away in Jacksonville. You also got Calais Campbell, huge defensive tackle out of Arizona. Got paid from another team, which is great. There's a lot of power on this defense. You also have Dante Fowler Jr., defensive end. Had his rookie season cut short. His sophomore season was nothing to write home about. But his 3rd season, he's looking to really make an impact. Has made some poor life decisions. Hopefully, that's all behind him, and he can concentrate on football now. But this defense, I think, is looking to really make some waves this year. Coach Doug Marrone, who Buffalo fans might remember as the one who tried to interview for the Jets job, didn't get it, and then got fired. Looking to look for a new start down in Jacksonville. And he's got the pieces. He's got a talented offense and the makings of a veteran defense. If he can put it all together, I think that Jacksonville fans are looking at a entertaining season at least. It's going to be nowhere near as poor as last year. it's all a question as to whether Blake Bortles can keep it up. And as we're drinking our Poland Spring, I'm thinking that they can do it. Now we're going to move over to the NFC to my poor friends, the Atlanta Falcons. Now, Falcons fans, I know this is not really helpful coming from a Patriots fan, but we are here for you. We've been there before twice, and I know that we've also won 5 Super Bowls, so that kind of X's it out, but we understand. I've seen the Tyree helmet catch a million times. I've seen the Mario Manningham catch a million times. You're 28-3 is never going away. I'm sorry. The best way to move forward with your football lives is just to go past it. But the good news is it's going to be easy to pass it, or to move past it with such an awesome offense, just as good as you had last year. You hardly lost any pieces. Offense led by Matty Ice Ryan, another BC product, and Julio Jones out of Alabama. Julio, going into his 6th season, had one of the craziest catches in Super Bowl history that unfortunately for you, but fortunately for me, got outshined by Julian Edelman's amazing catch. But you also got Mohamed Sanu, Taylor Gabriel, Justin Hardy, the names to write home about on the wide receivers. I really like Sanu, Sanu Canoe, as he used to be called in Cincinnati by A.J. Green. 11-5 for the Falcons last year. They're playing a first-place schedule now, so it's going to be a little more difficult for them. But I see no reason why this offense can't bring them back to the Super Bowl, especially with Dan Quinn still as your head coach. Played pretty aggressively in the Super Bowl, but that's what you want to see. Austin Hooper, the tight end position as well. You have 2 great running backs in Donta Freeman and Tevin Coleman. Devontae Freeman got paid. Is now the highest paid running back in the NFL. It's a position that I don't necessarily think you have to spend money on to be a successful team, but if you think he's your guy, you got to lock him up. And then you can't say enough about Matt Ryan, Matty Ice, BC Pride, Boston College Eagles. MVP from last year. I think he can keep going. The offensive line is good enough to keep him upright with Jake Matthews and Andy Levitre and Alex Mack from Cleveland. Not really many holes you can find with this offense. Austin Hooper is a great tight end. You got Levine Tolio backing him up. Just looking for a hole in this offense, I guess you have to say the right side of their offensive line, and that's just because I'm not familiar with these guys. And offensive line isn't really a sexy position. It's not a position that gets talked about frequently. So these guys could be, Ryan Schrader and Wes Schwitzer could be, beasts, but it's just I haven't heard of them. So I'm just going to say that they're the weakness of this team, which is horrible, horrible journalism. But I'm sticking to my guns here. Probably the best offense in the NFC outside of Dallas, maybe even a little bit better than Dallas. Dallas definitely has a better offensive line, but these wide receivers, Julio Jones, I think, is better than Dez Bryant. Mohamed Sanu is a great number 2 guy, and Devonta Freeman, and Tevin Coleman are great 1-2 punch at running back. Moving to the defense, the guy who impressed me the most during the Super Bowl was Grady Jarrett, defensive tackle number 97, 3 sacks in that game, gave Brady fits, and it's really difficult for anybody to give Brady fits, but he was never safe from Grady Jarrett, so he's looking to keep that going. Former 5th-round pick, just shows you that anybody can make it in the NFL. You got Dontari Poe, huge addition to this defense, no pun intended. Brooks White Lightning Reed on the left side of that defensive end from Houston going into his 3rd year with Atlanta. You also got Courtney Upshaw, former Baltimore Raven, couldn't really make a name for himself, but one guy who can make it, or did make a name for himself last year in his rookie season, was Vic Beasley, 15.5 sacks, and almost picked off a touchdown in the end zone during the Super Bowl. Vic Beasley looking to continue his dominant performance. For cornerbacks, you got Robert Alford with that interception return touchdown. Desmond Trufant, who was missing from the Super Bowl last year, could have been a very different game if he was there. You also got Keanu Neal and Ricardo Allen as your safeties. Those are two great hard-hitting coverage safeties as well. Running back position is kind of weak. Besides Vic Beasley, you got Deion Jones and Devondre Campbell, rookies for backups, and that's really the weakness of this team. That can hurt them down the road, but you get strength up front, you get coverage in the back. If those linebackers can get the middle, then I think you're looking at a top tier defense. I have no doubts that they will repeat as AFC South champions unless that Super Bowl hangover gets them hard, and that can happen. If Matt Ryan can keep his head on his shoulders and find Julio Jones down the seam, it's more of the same. But such a devastating loss in the Super Bowl can have an effect on a team, and I'm hoping that they can overcome it, because that was a great game, and I would love to see the Falcons in the Super Bowl again. Moving a little more south to someone we're also looking out for right now, while the Hurricanes hitting Tampa Bay Buccaneers. One of the more exciting teams in the NFL this year, led by their quarterback, famous Jameis Winston, looking more and more like a leader. Made some really reprehensible choices in college. That seems to be behind him, which is great. And he seems to be more of a leader for this team, a team that has really gone offensive heavy. You get Deshaun Jackson coming over from Washington, great wide receiver. Mikey Evans going into his third year as a wide receiver in Tampa. Got him on a lot of my fantasy teams. You also got O.J. Howard from Alabama as a starting tight end next to Cameron Brate. Their offensive line is a little lacking. Ali Marpet as their center, who some of you offensive line junkies might remember as a Division II athlete getting drafted in the second round of 2015. J.R. Sweezy from Seattle, one of the bright spots of their offensive line, now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Donovan Smith, second-round pick from a couple years back. And your quarterback, like I said, Jameis Winston, kind of a larger Russell Wilson and Marcus Mariota, a little more beefy, a little stronger, more of a Cam Newton than those other two players. If he can be a leader on the field, I'm confident that he can lead them to a Super Bowl. 9-7 last year. I think they exceeded expectations. If they can meet expectations again and grab a wild card spot, that would be great. The running back position is a little lacking for them since Doug Martin is suspended currently. They got Jaquiz Rogers starting for them with Charles Sims as the backup. Hey, I'm hoping that Jaquiz Rogers can be a starter in the NFL, but I'm not bent on it. I think that he's best as a scat back, third down, pass catching back. I think that Charles Sims starting here makes more sense, but then again, I am not Dirk Cotter. I'm not the coach, so I do not make the decisions, obviously. Moving to the defensive side of the ball, Robert Ayers helped win a Super Bowl with the Patriots in 2014 before going to the Giants, now starting defensive end for this team. Gerald McCoy came out in the same draft as Ndamukong Suh and Sam Bradford, I believe. And now he's going into his 7th season, and he is a beast. He's a dog in the front. It's going to be really interesting to see if this defense can come together. William Golston on the other side of the defensive line, as well as Chris Baker coming over from Washington. These are players that can put pressure on the quarterback, and that's really what you need from your defensive line. That's a really obvious thing for me to say, but these guys can get after it. I think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, anchored by McCoy and Baker and Golston, can be a force. No slouches at linebacker either. Alexander Quan, Devontae Bond has really made a name for himself. Levante David is a player that I really like going into his 5th season. Had some trouble staying healthy, the defense has in the past. Gerald McCoy's been banged up a little. Levante David banged up a little, but I think that if they can both stay healthy, this is going to be a team that you don't want to mess with. Cornerback's a little lacking. Brent Grimes, probably know his wife Miko. A little crazy, but you need a little crazy in your secondary. Keith Tandy and Chris Conte. I like Chris Conte coming over from Chicago as a safety. Vernon Hargreaves as well, first-round pick from last year, looking to continue his rookie campaign. You also got Ryan Smith and Robert McClain. Kicker Nick Folk. Nick Folk coming over from the Jets. They abandoned Robert Aguayo, their second-round kicker, which right off the bat I could have told you was a bad idea. That's put way too much pressure on the most pressure position in the NFL. I think that kickers are under more pressure than big quarterbacks in the NFL. Sound like Bill Belichick, blowing my nose right now. And then you got Adam Humphries returning kicks and Ryan Smith returning punts. Only flip that. Adam Humphries returning punts, Ryan Smith returning kicks. 9-7 last year. They're playing a second-place schedule now. They are in a tough division, though. The NFC South, a very tough division, really great offenses. Consistently underperforming, though. You have at least one team that you pick to go 10-6 that goes 6-10. But we'll get to the Panthers later. Right now we're going to move a little further west to Nolan Saints, Who Dat Nation. Quarterback, you get Drew Brees. What can you say about Drew Brees that hasn't already been said? Perennial Pro Bowler, consummate professional, short guy that can really sling it. He lost his number one receiving option in Brandon Cooks to the Patriots. Thank you very much. But now you got Michael Thomas, starting wide receiver, and Ted Ginn Jr., who my friend Steve, who's a Carolina Panthers fan, can tell you is good for 180-yard touchdown a year and not much else. One player that I'm excited to see on the Saints is Austin Carr, wide receiver undrafted out of Northwestern, who spent his camp and preseason in New England. Everybody thought he was making this team, especially when Edelman went down, but he was released and the Saints jumped on it. And if there's one thing that the Saints can use, or not can use, but have produced in the past, it's great wide receivers. And I think that Austin Carr can make an impact on this team. For running back, you have Mark Ingram coming into his 6th year out of Alabama. You also have the number one free agent acquisition of the summer, Adrian Peterson. Monday night tomorrow, you have Adrian Peterson returning to Minnesota to beat up on the Vikings, hopefully. Adrian Peterson also made some poor life decisions in his life, but a great running back, one of the best of all time. Always bounces back from injuries, which is the most impressive thing with Adrian Peterson. Looking forward to seeing that game on Monday night. Their offensive line is okay. Andrews Pete, they got a new left tackle in Ryan Ramczyk. Larry Warford is a guard from Detroit, and Zach Strief, who's going into his 11th season. 7th round pick. That's really great to see someone go the distance like that. He's no 6th round, 199th pick overall that wins 5 Super Bowls, but 7th round, still pretty good. Tight end, Colby Fleener, kind of a letdown out of Indianapolis. It was thought that he was going to be a huge target for Andrew Luck. Never really came into his own. Has been much better in New Orleans, though. So I'm excited to see what he can do this year. Overall, a great offense. I'm a little hesitant to rank them as the second best offense in this division. But they definitely have the second, I can't even say they have the second best quarterback. It's a great offense. Great offense here in New Orleans. Sorry, that's a cop-out. Over on the defensive side of the ball, Alex Okafor from Arizona. I'm a huge fan of the Okafor brothers. Coming over from Texas, or coming out of Texas, rather. Cameron Jordan, your premier pass rusher for the Saints. The defense is really where they were lacking last year. Hoping that they can turn that around. They drafted a couple rookies in the first and second round for this team, really hoping that they have an impact right away. But Cameron Jordan is the premier pass rusher on this team. Kenny Vaccaro, another Texas Longhorn safety going into his 4th year. Marshawn Lattimore, first-round pick out of OSU. Then you also got Marcus Williams as a backup safety. So I think that this defense is growing. I think that their defense is still a problem. They play the Patriots in Week 2, which is a tall order for any defense. But after the Patriots played so poorly on Thursday, I think that that's going to be a more interesting game than a lot of people had it drawn up for. Overall, it's a good team. Who Dat Nation is always a very passionate fan base. We are here for you. We're drinking our Poland Spring for you. But the defense still needs some work, my friends. And that's something that I think is constantly getting better. But it's something that's still a couple years away. They also got Manti Te'o, former Notre Dame Fighting Irishman and Los Angeles Charger, looking to revitalize his career in New Orleans. Last year he wasn't really that effective, hoping that he can be more effective this year. The last but not least in our division previews, the Carolina Panthers. Super Bowl representatives for the NFC 2 years ago, 6-10 last year. Huge drop off for these guys. Looking forward to coming back at it. Led by one Cam Newton, first overall pick out of Auburn, going into his 6th season. Man, seems like just yesterday. Cam Newton, one of the most mobile quarterbacks of the NFL. They have not only a good set of triplets, but maybe some quadruplets here, because they got Cam Newton, they got Jonathan Stewart and Christian McCaffrey. We're counting them as one person at running back. You got Kelvin Benjamin out of Florida State going into his 3rd year. Put on a lot of weight in the offseason, but apparently, if you listen to the coaches and the Panthers fans, shout out to my man Steve, he's looked just as effective as he ever has. So that's the triplets right there. Then you add one of the best tight ends in football, definitely top 5, Greg Olsen, out of the U. Greg Olsen was really effective in the first half of the season last year, kind of tailed off, only had 6 touchdowns all year. But now that they got Christian McCaffrey run CMC, I think that he's going to kind of fill a Danny Woodhead role for this team. And Panthers fans, I know that's not what you want to hear, that Christian McCaffrey is going to be in a Danny Woodhead role, but he's actually going to be much, much better than Danny Woodhead, much younger, much faster. I think you're going to see him lining up in the receiver slot a lot. The offensive line has really gone downhill since Von Miller destroyed them during the Super Bowl. Matt Khalil from Minnesota, former number 3 overall pick. You also got his brother Ryan at the center position. Trey Turner is a great right guard. But overall, they need to protect Cam Newton. Cam Newton, you know what? The referees need to protect Cam Newton. He got hit in the head so many times last year, hardly ever got a flag thrown. But, this offense, it's really a toss-up between New Orleans and the Panthers for the second best offense. And Tampa Bay, if they were in another division, would probably have the second best offense, but it's just that just goes to show how offensive oriented the NFC South is. And that's not even to say their defense is bad, because it's not. But their offense is really a force. Cam Newton gets fits for the other offense or other defenses that he faces. Christian McCaffrey is really going to add another wrinkle because he's a mobile, little squirrely guy who can move those chains, move the sticks. Then you get Kelvin Benjamin and Devin Funches. These are guys that I think it's going to be a high-flying offense if everything goes right. If Cam Newton can't stay healthy, though. You got Derek Anderson backing him up. Not that confident about him. Moving to the defensive side of the ball, Charles Johnson starting defensive end. Julius Peppers is back, Carolina Panthers fans. The 2002 first-round overall selection is back with his boys. I thought it was going to be one of those signs a one-day contract and retires, but he's on the opening day roster. So hopefully he can still bring it. He brought it in Chicago and in Green Bay. All he has to do is they're asking him to do one thing, and that's get after that quarterback. And as long as he's strong enough to do it, I have faith. Star Lutulay and Kawan Short anchoring the defense at defensive tackle. Two great players. Kawan Short really made a name for himself last year. Mario Addison, someone I'm not familiar with, so I'm not really going to talk much about that defensive end. Shaq Thompson, 2015 first-round pick. I thought that he was a Patriot signed, sealed, and delivered, but the Panthers snatched him up pretty right quick. Shaq Thompson, little-known fact, actually played minor league ball for the Red Sox, went 0 for 21, struck out 20 times. So the man found a niche with football from Washington Huskies. He plays linebacker and safety, which is why I thought he was a Patriot to sign, sealed, delivered. But the Panthers did snatch him up. Shaq Thompson is not the best linebacker on this team. I can tell my man Jared saying, get to Luke. Luke Kuechly, first-round pick in 2012 out of Boston College. Go Eagles. Perennial Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Had a really scary head injury last year. I'm really glad that he bounced back. I have a feeling that he could have bounced back if the Panthers were in the playoff race instead of finishing 6-10. Great cover linebacker, hard hitter. He's got a motor on him. When the Panthers play on Monday night, I guarantee you they'll at least show one of those clips where they trace his movement from the ball from one sideline to, getting blocked on the right sideline, and then going all the way to the other side to make the tackle 20 yards downfield. He'll probably travel something like 120 yards in this phase, but the man can ball. There's no question about that. The secondary's a little lacking. Kurt Coleman is a great safety, and I think he's unfortunately the sole bright spot of this secondary. Letting Josh Norman go was something that had to happen, but at the same time, it's really a huge step down. James Bradbury, second-round pick from last year. Darryl Worley, a third-round pick from last year, and Mike Adams. Mike Adams is a great safety from Indianapolis. He's going to make an impact on this team. I thought he was 29 years old, but that is his number. Gabe Brady fits when he was in Indianapolis, and there weren't that many players in Indianapolis. So if he can make a name for himself in Carolina, if he can keep playing with the same tenacity that he played in Indianapolis, brighter days are ahead for the Carolina Panthers. I'm pretty confident that you're not going to finish 6-10. That still may not be enough to get out of the the basement of this incredibly competitive division. It's really rough to have the Super Bowl NFC team, Arizona Cardinals, another bird, and another A team, Atlanta Falcons, one of the best quarterbacks of all time in Drew Brees, and a young, speedy defense and offense in Tampa Bay, hoping that they can finish better than they did last year, maybe make a playoff appearance, because Cam Newton is a force on the field. He is a player. He's fun to watch. He's a very unconventional quarterback, and I think that's what makes a lot of people like him. Fozzie Whitaker returning kicks as well. Great football name. Panthers also got hit with the injury bug last year, which I think is a huge reason why they did not make the playoffs. Another player that I didn't spend enough time on, Thomas Davis, a man who was a first-round pick in 2005, has had 3 season-ending knee injuries, and has come back stronger than ever each time. David Mayo, too. That's Jordan Mayo's brother, I think. Like I said earlier, I'd love to see them place better than 4th in their division, but it's a very, very competitive division. And we are now an hour and a half away from the kickoff. So I'm going to sign off right now. I'm going to get ready, get the chicken wings cooking in the oven, and we will talk to you next week for some Week 1 recap. Peace out.